Hello everyone and welcome to A Better Life. In today's Keys, we will explore the new dimensions of health and well-being, and we'll also consider how organizations can play a role in improving our well-being. We do know that the global health crisis has taken its toll, not only on our physical health, but also our mental health. In our studies, respondents around the world are telling us that they're feeling anxious, and this level of anxiety is particularly high with women and young people. So let's listen to our experts for a better understanding of how we are feeling and what the implications are. First of all, Simon in London and Elena in Sao Paulo will wonder if we are okay. They will guide us through research from around the world on our new routines and how they impact our well-being, with the addition of a very special Brazilian touch. Then, in Healthy Conversations, Laila will put the spotlight on the language of wellness and how it is evolving. She's analyzed what people around the world are exchanging in terms of messages online and what we can learn from that. Finally, in What to Expect Next, Rina will discuss the evolving landscape of connected health, a fascinating world in which new technologies can empower better lives. But there are some challenges and some hiccups that need to be considered for that to happen. So let's listen first of all to Simon and Elena. Over to you.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everybody for being with us today. And as Jennifer said, we wanted to take some time out to think about how people feel about their lives, their well-being and their future. And just to kick things off, I've drawn on 4 studies which I hope may contribute to all of our understanding on whether we around the world are feeling okay or not as we look to the future. The first 2 are international studies looking at mental health specifically and healthcare services more generally. We'll also take a look at a State of the Nation piece of research by our colleagues in the United States who've looked at this concept of wellness in a very holistic way. I thought I'd start by looking at how people feel right now through the lens of our Essential study, which many of you may have seen has been tracking people's attitudes and behaviour for nearly 2 years now. We went into 2022 with the rather depressing map of people being still towards the left-hand side of our charts. We asked them to assess how they feel right now regarding the pandemic, and so many people around the world in the wake of the Omicron variant were getting ready for new restrictions or reacting to the ones that had already been imposed. Cautious good news, if we look at the February study, just fresh out these last few days, our team is able to report the biggest bounce back in any month since the start of the pandemic. And we're able to ask the question, I think it's only the question at this stage, about whether the worst is behind us. Still worth reminding ourselves that the median person across our 16 countries is here, having adapted and settled into some new routines rather than celebrating the new normal. Thinking about that return to normal, still the case that for nearly 6 in 10 people around the world, that's at least a year away, if ever. And indeed, we're only finding 7% of people are saying things feel normal to me now. And I wanted just to pause on how things feel to me now, because one of the things that we've observed, just pulling together some of the evidence for this webinar, is the importance of language. And you'll hear more about this in a moment from Laila. But if we look at how people relate to the concept of feeling stressed, we can certainly see that as they start to move towards a more normal environment, towards the right-hand side of our chart, they're less likely to say that they're feeling stressed. So I might take one set of conclusions away with me. But if I look at this other question, I feel good both physically and mentally, you're finding no I'm just finding fluctuations, no trend. There seem to be other things at work over and above the day-to-day, week-to-week context of the pandemic. And it really just served as a reminder for precision and to take quite a holistic view when we are thinking about this concept of a better life for people around the world. On that concept of a better life, our Mental Health Day study gave us a rare moment of consensus around the world. 79% of people telling us that their mental health is as important as their physical health. And actually, we've got another 12% who say their mental health is more important. And certainly one of the things we found in that study was that there's a sense of maybe a time lag or maybe a discrepancy between how they feel or what they expect and the services available from their own country's healthcare system, which perhaps are still a little bit more oriented towards the physical health treatment. Now, talking of health services, we've got a very detailed study looking at health services around the world, and I leave you with the link. But today, I just wanted to focus on this particular question. Which three of the following do you see as the biggest health problems facing people in your country today? Let's go back to the time before the pandemic, before we'd heard of COVID. Cancer was some way out in front as the key problem that people identified as a health issue in their country. Take a look at the mental health and stress categories, and as we go into the pandemic period, we see them rising up the ranking. And as we see the pandemic period continue, we see that position only consolidating, with mental health very close to cancer now in terms of people's hierarchy of perceptions of what's important in their country. I also highlight mental health and stress again because it's another reminder of this point about the need for precision, I think, if we're trying to build a more holistic understanding on this topic. If I can take the example of the home countries of your two opening presenters, Helena, who you'll hear from in a moment, in Brazil, and me in Britain, our two countries rank quite high in terms of prioritizing mental health. When we're looking at the question of stress, Brazil ranks mid-table and Britain towards the foot of the table. And it really serves as a bit of a reminder of the importance, if it were needed, of us taking the time to think about different cultures, different countries, and the language, and perhaps also what the different terms mean in different languages. And it felt like something we shouldn't forget as we start to think about this topic more broadly. Now, thinking about the topic more broadly, what our colleagues in the US have done is to bring together a report looking at wellness in its broader sense and trying to think about what the future might bring. It includes some snapshots on how Americans are feeling right now. They're telling us that their health is more important to them now than it was before the pandemic. Many of them saying they like the idea of having more customized advice and plans for the health, and that could be something that colleagues on the call in your organizations can perhaps support them with. And again, a reminder that how we feel about our healthcare system can depend quite significantly on our own personal circumstances, or in this case, on our own life stage. Younger people having a rather different perspective on whether their healthcare system works for them than older people. The other thing that our colleagues in the US have done is try to map the territory of what will drive the future of wellness. And in doing that, they've built a checklist of the things that we can all look out for as we think about how we can help people build or live better lives. We're going to touch on some of those things in the remainder of our time with you today. And I'm so pleased that Helena is able to join us from Sao Paulo. She's been researching this topic for a number of years, and she's going to share with us some additional perspectives on this question of how we feel right now and are we okay. Helena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Simon. Hi, everyone. So if I ask you today, how are you? many of you may mentally consider some aspects of life before giving the automatic response, I'm fine, how are you? Because this very common question has gained a different meaning since the beginning of the pandemic. And as Simon said, I live in Brazil. And here in the first months of the pandemic, when someone asked you, hey, how are you? It became very common to say, I'm okay given the circumstances, or I'm okay as much as I can be, because feeling really good in a crisis situation can be very difficult. And we could say that since then, no one is 100% well. So pandemic fine is an expression that has been used to describe this new way of being well. And it means that you're healthy, you continue to have a job, you're not currently grieving, your family is healthy. But at the same time, you feel a little sad, you feel hopeless, you feel tired physically or tired mentally. And this is pandemic fine. And it's not only the pattern of well-being that has changed, but also the pattern of suffering, because if everyone is feeling bad on some level, it's difficult to distinguish this collective malaise from a pandemic of depression. And that's why the term Corona blues also emerged to name this depressive state that was installed in the pandemic. And the deterioration of mental and physical health is the main threat seen by people in the face of the pandemic, as you can see in this Ipsos study carried out in 28 countries. And after 1 year of COVID, 45% of people on average have experienced their mental health change for the worse. And here we have the 10 countries that most felt this impact. And as you can see here, Brazil is in 5th place. And why are we feeling this way? In the next slides, I'll show you how some factors that are affecting us globally are being felt, especially in Brazil, the country where I live. So first, we cannot forget that Brazilians are a very sociable people. We really enjoy having a beer or a caipirinha with friends at the end of the day, or getting the whole family together for a barbecue on the weekend. So when we need to reduce that contact, when we can't hug our friends and gather in a bar, a part of our culture is taken away from us. And that's why many Brazilians resist to social isolation as much as they can. The Ipsos survey from 1 year ago found that 1/3 of respondents in 28 countries have often felt alone. But in Brazil, this number rises to 50%, which put us in the first place in the loneliness ranking. And as we Brazilians are very sociable, as I said, we really miss having free contact and frequent contact with people. And one of the reasons we feel more alone is the home office, which is a reality today for many privileged Brazilians. And an Ipsos survey at the end of 2020 revealed how work has been a trigger for stress, anxiety, and fatigue. And as you can see here, Brazilians not only feel more isolated working at home, but we found it difficult to find a balance between our personal and professional lives. And also the economic instability we have here made me feel more anxious due to job insecurity. And there is another problem. We have the family pressures are causing stress at work too, especially for women who here in Brazil still carry most of the primary care responsibilities with the home and the family. Another Ipsos survey carried out in 30 countries 1 year ago places Brazil in 4th position in terms of exercises reduction since the beginning of the pandemic, and in 1st position for weight gain. But despite all data pointing to a negative scenario, we can see that we have adopted some positive strategies to deal with the new reality. So for example, we can see more Brazilians looking for meditation, for yoga, and even skincare has gained the status of self-care and well-being here in Brazil. And here you can see how Google searches and social media conversations about skincare have grown in Brazil after the pandemic. And the beauty industry has seen huge sales growth here. And despite all the impacts of the pandemic, Brazilians are optimistic and believe in a return to normal life in a not too distant future. And after 1 year of COVID, an Ipsos study showed that around 60% of Brazilians believe that in less than a year, the pandemic would be contained and we could return to normal life. And of course, unfortunately, now we know that we were wrong about timing, but it's interesting to see that we are trying to keep a positive outlook in the face of all this. And one of the strongest positive aspects brought about the pandemic was the sense of community, which is linked with the spirit of solidarity. 36% of Brazilians believe their community has become more supportive, according to another Ipsos study. And it's good to remember that solidarity involves not only supporting small producers, for example, but also the acceptance of sadness, because we are all going through this troubled moment together, and we are more understanding about other people's emotional state, in fact. So it's important to remember that we haven't lost the ability to adapt, to reinvent ourselves, and to build a future. And we all, not only Brazilians, always have the chance to make it a better future. And these ribbons that you see in the image are a symbol of luck in Brazil and a way to ask for our wishes to come true. So I think they are a good symbol to end our conversation about my country today. So thank you all. I hope we all stay well. And I invite everyone to learn more about the Brazilian scenario by reading my colleagues' articles in the publication Fly Brazil, Gaps and Bridges, which is available online in our website. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Helena. I'm sure lots of people will be curious to go and learn a little bit more. And you've given us a lovely flavor of Brazil with the challenges, but also the optimism, as we have now a representative of Brazilian population with us. I'm not going to lose the chance to ask you what your own outlook is. How are you feeling? What is your optimism or your challenges?
Yeah, Jennifer, when you talk about optimism in Brazil, first it's important to understand that Brazil is a country of many contradictions, because on the one hand, we are optimistic, we like to party, we have lots of sun and we have the beach, we have a relaxed lifestyle. But on the other hand, we have a lot of economic instability, we have a big social inequality, we have a serious problem related to mental health. And you may not know this, but Brazil is the country with the most diagnosed cases of anxiety in the world, and is also the most depressed country in Latin America. So while we have all these problems, optimism is part of our culture. So there is a genuine willingness to believe that in the end, everything will be okay. And this weekend, the Brazilian Carnival begins. And Carnival for us means 4 days in which we forget all of our problems. We dedicate ourselves exclusively to party. But this year, like last year, we won't be able to go out and dance freely in the streets because of the pandemic, of course. So many of us are saying, okay, now we won't have a carnival like we would like to have, but next year we'll have the biggest carnival ever. I think it represents very well our optimism and our current state of mind at this moment.
Great, thanks so much, Helena. And so have fun, although you may be dancing in front of your screen, but and we all wish you a great carnival next year as well. Thank you so much for being with us. So Helena has reminded us of the importance of local, of cultural nuances, of making sure that words are interpreted well, as Simon showed us before. And to go a little bit more in depth on that, we have Laila with us, who is going to share what's going on in terms of conversations online and what we can learn from there in terms of health and well-being. Over to you, Laila.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thanks Simon and Helena for this great introduction. So I'm Laila. I work on social intelligence and analytics, and I've been lucky enough to work on wellness and health for the past 20 years. I'm coming with fresh insights today from a research we especially ran for this webinar. So we've collected conversation on public posts from the usual suspect social networks, but not only, also the generalist and more specialized blogs and forums. To do so, we built a mega query based on keywords related to wellness and mental and physical health. Problem, we excluded COVID-19 and vaccines for sure. And what I'll share today will be very much focused on two key cultural backgrounds, the US one and the Indian one, on which Simon showed that they were so different. So to do so, we used our AI-enabled social intelligence platform, Synthesio. So with that, I will share a first learning. First learning is that we got two clear territories on social conversations, and that are now equally split thanks to the explosion of conversations related to mental health. So now we got conversation about wellness, which are very self-projected. We talk about inspiration, goals, motivation. It's about myself and my peers. It's dominated by Instagram. So as an example, for the past year, conversation in the US, conversation on Instagram represents 70%. Whereas on mental health, the conversations deal more with mental health as a social issue, as a public health concern. It has exploded through recent reveals of famous people revealing the challenges they got. And on mental health, the conversation happens more on Twitter, and for the US, on Twitter and Reddit. But people are more likely to talk about others. So here is a bubble graph of hashtags that we run on the wellness corpus. So I could talk on this one for an hour, but I won't. So here you'll see that the conversations are well sketched by this bubble graph, and it shows that it touches almost all aspects of life. Wellness is very much a lifestyle, so it deals with workout, sport, exercise, food, nutrition. There is an element of household and home. It's about work and work balance. And at the center of everything, there is this notion of positive attitude. So in this bubble graph in the US, we can see that everything is kind of overlapping now, the inside health and the visible health. As an example, the mental and physical health as well. And we ran exactly the same analysis on the Indian data that showed us that conversations are, of course, culturally grounded. So as an example, it's less about exercises, workout, and sports in India, but it's much more about spirituality, positive mindsets, as you can see here. We talk a lot about food and nutrition, but actually a bit more about food than nutrition here in India. So speaking about cultural differences, we can see also that the tone of conversation, the style of sharing is actually very different from in the US and in India. So in the US, American will think, will feel, will work. We are very much in the self-expression semantic with a lot of motivational speech, and the style is very much peer-to-peer. Types of conversation, whereas in India, we talk more about improve, help, lose, ask, with much more prescriptive expressions and much more definition of what good and healthy look like, meaning that we are more with top to bottom profiles of conversations here. So now I'd like to share a few words, a few learning on the mental health territory. So on this one, we can see the positive side of things with a lot of destigmatization happening, a lot of de-dramatization happening, a lot of debates, especially driven by influencers and recent reveals from athletes, artists who've shared the mental health challenges they faced and are facing. On this mental health corpus, we ran a topic modeling, a bottom-up topic modeling on our Synthesio platform, and it reveals that the #1 cluster is around self-love and gratitude. So there are a lot of comments, positive comments around those stories that were shared about resilience, about of claims for self-love, a lot of gratitude expressed, and that's the very positive side of the mental health conversations. But I can't deny that beyond this free speech and reveals about the situation related to mental health, the other positive thing is the promotion of support and help, but we can't deny that there is also a darker side of things, with a risky normalization and kind of morbid fascination towards poor mental health. And we can see also in conversation, if it's not the majority of comments and posts, kind of toxic conversations and wrong support provided. So a lot of trolls, preach, and non-proven support out there too. So not to leave you on this negative side, I'd like to share also a few takeaways for brands, that we discover that in our corpus, all verticals are impacted by wellness and mental health. It goes from entertainment, tech, food and beverages, healthcare, etc. And I've not touched on the employer brands of things, but we got a lot of conversation talking about the balance between work and your personal life. So for brands, I feel that there is positive message also, as the field is highly engaging for people. It's a field of a lot of creativity from audiences, and for sure, if mental health is a rising concern, it's also certainly a field of opportunities for brands.
Thank you so much, Laila, for sharing these thoughts and these great takeaways. I think what you presented was extremely revealing. I think that comparison between the US and India, and Simon, I see you're nodding because that's your area of really pointing out these differences and how important it is to really understand on the ground how different cultures deal with issues and problems, both in terms of how they are addressed, and it was interesting to hear that peer-to-peer, or that like looking for advice sort of attitude, but also the words that are used, as Simon also was pointing out at the beginning. So thank you very much for reminding us about that, and also about the dangers of the toxic side that we need to definitely be aware of, but make sure we are avoiding. So you, Laila, have been definitely digging into a lot of data, and you've been seeing a lot of stuff. And by the way, thank you for running that study, especially for us. I was wondering if there was any, while you were looking at all these words and numbers, any aha that was particularly relevant to you in this search for the words of health?
Yeah, sure. Actually, two of them. The aha for me was first hungriness towards positivity. The people are, starving for positive sparks in terms of experiences and content. And as an example, I was very surprised to see streaming platform, content platforms popping up as key services in the field of wellness and mental health as well. And the other thing for me, which was a bit of an aha, is what people don't talk about. And for instance, in the US, people don't talk about relationships. They don't talk about family that much. It's a topic that's much discussed in India. But yes, the topic of loneliness, family, relationships is not covered that much in conversations right now. Same for sleep. We know that it's a problem, and especially with the pandemic, but people don't talk about that that much right now.
So thank you. That's another very important reminder. It's not only what people talk about, but also what people don't talk about, and thinking about the importance that there may be there. And again, the cultural differences as well. Thank you so much, Laila. That was super interesting. And we will now move over to an area that is indeed, I think, bringing a lot of hope to lots of people around the planet. And it's this great area of connected health that Rena is going to guide us into. And so Rena, we'd love to hear from you. What's next for us all?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and a big hello to everyone that's joining us today. We've learned a lot about wellness, the different facets of wellness, and what's really interesting when we think about the future is the role that technology can play. The future marketplace is approximately 1.5 trillion for wellness. Products around health, fitness, nutrition, beauty, like Helena said, is growing for wellness. Sleep and mindfulness are really penetrating the marketplace. I was fortunate to be at CES earlier this year, and whilst the show was much more reduced than previous years, the wellness market was absolutely everywhere. Connected fitness, connected products all around the home are really where the investment is today. Looking a bit further into investment, 2021 was a record year for investment within digital health. Year on year, digital health has only been growing. And what's interesting is to see where the mega deals really are. Most of the investment is within weight loss products, helping us with our physical health, but also wellness products, very much around mental health. Places and companies like Peloton have been given mega deals as they expand from being a bike fitness product going into yoga mats, which are connected and give you an instructor to help you with your yoga skills. We're seeing much more investment into personalized genome sequencing companies. 23andMe give you a report which is about your wellness, giving you biomarkers about how you can optimize your well-being. We're also seeing this expansion into employee wellness, which Laila also touched upon. So GymPass has had a huge amount of investment, making it much easier for employees to be able to access gyms at their convenience. And convenience is another really important part of the story. I work in healthcare. My entire career has been in healthcare, and I trained in cognitive behavioral therapy. So mental health is very close to my heart. And it's interesting to me because all the products that I've been working on have always been within the diabetes space, cardiovascular care. They have really grown and expanded within digital health. But if we look at the investment, mental health is the top ranked clinical indication where the investment is going today, far outgrowing any other sector in terms of a therapy area. The types of investment that we're seeing is for asynchronous care, 24/7, be it chatbots, be it ways to monitor your health, virtual reality. It's fascinating to me. I remember being in a clinical room, asking someone to close their eyes and imagine to put yourself in that place you were when you had your phobia, if we're dealing with a panic attack. Now you can immerse someone within that scenario and do true exposure therapy. And this is happening now. It's happening in a very niche way, and we'll talk about that, but it is happening. Sensory experiences are very interesting too. The healing power of music and the use of environments is also expanding within mental health. Wellness is being integrated into everyday life, be it the wearable marketplace, through watches, be it Netflix partnership with Headspace to bring meditation to the masses. Even in the financial sector, we see a correlation between our financial well-being and our well-being. So it's interesting that Barclays created the Life Skills course, which really is about helping people to make better decisions and alleviate stress in their day-to-day life. The big call to action particularly from the health sector. And this is from a study that we conducted with the Consumer Tech Association on mental health. One of the things that's really coming out is this need for everyone to work together and for us to bring mental health to the equivalence as it should be to physical health. The way we talk about taking steps every day, standing, we also need to think about breathing, pacing ourselves, finding more moments of peace in the day. There's a lot more work or collective action happening around the wellness story. Interestingly, in the report that we conducted with the Consumer Tech Association, we asked consumers within the US who had experience of using technology for their health, what ones they would use in the future. Meditation apps, sleep monitoring, augmented reality and virtual reality came up to the top for those that had experience with it. So what are the implications of this at a sector level? And I know there's a variety of sectors on the call. Well, there's certainly a blurring of category lines. Wellness is something which can penetrate every industry. We are seeing really interesting collaborations within this space as well, but it has to be with purpose and authenticity. What Lila talked about a lot was the social media picture, and for sure, brands have suffered when they haven't been authentic. So making sure you do things with a purpose is going to be critical to what you do next. And thinking about services, not only products. Everything's about an end-to-end experience. Are you providing wraparound care? Are you providing coaching? Can people access, added value from the products that are available to you? That's a really interesting movement within the digital health space. However, when we talk about technology, it would be remiss of me not to talk about the challenges too. We do have an equity challenge in digital health. And tech equity is the language, certainly, that we're hearing more and more. Not everybody has equal access, and we have to be mindful of that and think about how accessible we are making the products that we launch, but also in the design. How culturally appropriate is it? There's been a study conducted to show that the cultural appropriateness of some of the mental health apps in the marketplace do not work for many different people from different Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. For instance, aging population. We are living longer, and we have individuals who will be aging in place, aging in their home. A lot of wellness devices are around the smart home, which is interesting, but we mustn't forget that group. They have dispensable income. They can use technology. We need to myth bust that. But what are we doing to design really frictionless technology, voice enabled, not needing really difficult dexterity? Data privacy, we want personalization, we need to give data for it. Who owns that data? That's a whole other webinar, but it's something really important to raise today. And finally, access. Is it accessible to all? Is it going to be through an insurance company? Is it available for free? Most of the products today are direct to consumer, and it's a pay out of your own pocket. Therefore, it is creating a gap where we're seeing just those who can afford it accessing those products. And we as an industry need to think about access. With that, I say thank you very much.
Thank you, Irina, and for making us dream a bit about the future. I know it's already happening, but as you said, it's just happening in pockets, and we have a huge challenge around access for everybody. So it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves over the coming months and years. But you did mention at the beginning of your speech that you had the chance to be in Vegas and at CES, right? So that's great. And so you've been immersed in the future. And would you like to, from your perspective, what do you think would be interesting to underline in terms of what you've seen and what we should expect next?
I think it's definitely more about ambient technology. So how we can make technology not even be front and center. It should just exist around us. It shouldn't be felt. That's really the goal of the marketplace. Much more integrated products done smartly. So we're seeing, for me, telehealth, telemedicine is a huge area. And just seeing some of the partnerships to bring different apps and provisions and remote monitoring devices integrated into a solution is really great. It's great for the end user, and it's great in terms of access. So I think they are the key things I'd raise.
Oh, the future is technology without technology, that we don't even see it and feel it, but we know it's there and it's helping us. That's great. Super. So thank you very much. So Simon and his girls today, we were lots of ladies to accompany Simon. It was great to hear about all these different perspectives on physical health, mental health, what it means, and what opportunities there are for brands, organizations, and for all of us to work around this area. I'd like to thank all our speakers and to thank all of you who have been with us today. And we definitely look forward to welcoming you to our next Keys webinar in a month's time. Look out for the invitation. Bye, everyone, and thank you again.